Alright, so welcome back to part 2 of my interview with Jesse. It was brought to our attention by a few viewers that it wasn't entirely clear what caused his legs to go bye-bye. So we're gonna start with explaining what happened, and then we'll get into some questions that some viewers asked us. Alright. Okay, so the most asked question so far has been, what was your official diagnosis? What was wrong with you? Apparently it wasn't clear, so Jess, what was wrong with you?
I had gotten bacterial meningococcal or bacterial meningitis, depending on which one you know better.
Did you get it from a cut?
I didn't get it from a cut.
Did they figure out where it came from?
The doctors couldn't tell me where it came from, but I did do some research afterwards and found out that it's actually inside everybody's body. It only activates when your immune system gets too low.
And so what were you doing to make your immune system so low? If that's what it was from.
I don't know. That's a good question. I guess as good as mine.
Okay.
I probably hadn't seen the sun in a couple days, but...
So in your other video that we did, you talked about your corn and potato allergy. Was your corn and potato allergy missed in your chart? Or was it because of your sudden illness that they had no idea about your allergy?
I've actually had a corn and potato allergy since I was 8. My mother put me on a diet to help diagnose what my allergies were. So it's been in my chart for quite some time. And it was actually listed in my chart. It just was not acknowledged that that could have been what was killing me.
So what do you have to say to those medical professionals out there that sometimes miss things in charts?
I'd say that I probably could understand after missing a few things in other areas, but I do thank you that I'm still alive.
Alright, so you mentioned about the hyperbaric chamber in your other video. So, one of the viewers of the video wanted to know if the hyperbaric chamber felt any different being inside of it. Did you feel any different afterwards?
I didn't really feel any different afterwards. The main reason is I was in constant pain and freezing because of my condition. But from what the doctors did tell me is, it actually helped the recovery a lot. And I was pretty excited that I got to be in a different area besides a room and a bed.
Alright, so another viewer wanted to know what height did you choose of your legs?
I chose to pick a height that I was currently already at before I lost my legs. So I went back to being 5'10".
Did you want to be taller?
I thought about it, and then I meant that I would have to go and buy all new pants, and that was not going to happen.
So you chose to be your normal height so you wouldn't have to buy new clothes.
That was about it. That was the only reason.
Okay. Alright. A viewer from Michigan wanted to know if you were still able to bowl.
Yes, I am still able to bowl, and I am still bowling.
Okay.
The year before I lost my legs, I was averaging 217. After I lost my legs, I took a long time to get back into it as far as relearning how to throw the ball and everything. Finally, after about 3 years, about 3 years after relearning how to bowl, I was able to bring my average back up to 195.
How many days a week or leagues were you bowling in pre-legs?
Pre-legs, I was bowling 7 leagues a week.
And now?
Now I'm bowling 1.
Okay, alright. So another question that another viewer had, this one from California, she wanted to know if what you had, which was the bacterial meningitis, how would it would affect you in your life. going forward? Does it have any effects on you?
It has some effect on me. I run less often, but then again, I was never fond of running to begin with. But as far as how many steps that I walk, I'm still able to do a lot of things. It's just that when it comes down to heavy lifting, I'll generally try to avoid it.
Okay. How about the disease itself? Does it affect you now? Will it, like, for example, can you catch it again?
Yeah, I can catch it again. In fact, I've heard of people who have had it once before are more likely to catch it. So there's even been people that have been reported catching it up to 4 times in their lifetime, and can be even more dangerous with each reoccurrence.
And how long has it been since you first had it?
I originally got it in May of 2010.
Funny fact here. So Jesse went in the hospital in May of 2010 with the bacterial meningitis. At the same time, my middle daughter, who is now 10, was born on May 21st, 2010. And so I was paying attention to what was in the news because I'm a news watcher in newspaper, and I read about it. So fast forward about 5 years, and on our blind date, he told me he was in the paper, and I was like, that's pretty cool that, not that you got the disease, but pretty cool that I was had read about it and known about it before I actually met him. So those are all the questions we had from viewers and comments on Facebook and YouTube. So let's go over some questions I think will help you tell your story. All right. So you were in the hospital, and the doctor came in with papers and said, how did he break the news to you that you were going to need the operation? And how did you handle it?
He was trying to be sympathetic about having to cut off the legs, and then shortly after that started responding logical, explaining why that he had to cut the legs off. He said the main reason is that they're dead cells, and he wanted to make sure that it would not reoccur in the rest of my body. My response was not exactly the proper response that I should have taken, but it was the only thing on my mind at the time. Alright, sounds great. How long until I can get back up and go bowling? Because I got a tournament coming up. That's all I wanted to do, was just go out to this tournament that I had been saving up money all year for.
And when was the tournament scheduled to take place?
We were scheduled to go at the end of May.
And when did he come in to talk to you about your surgery?
It was probably second week of June.
So were you aware of the time passing?
No, in fact, I didn't even know what day it was. I couldn't tell you what it was. I may have had a TV on, but the TV that I was watching never told me what day it was. And unlike my wife, I do not watch the news at all.
All right. So he tells you that you need to get your legs cut off. Okay. Was anyone else in the room with you?
Yes. My dad was there. My mother was there. I don't think my grandparents were there, but that was about it.
Okay. So you got the surgery. How long were you in the hospital after you had the surgery?
I was still in the hospital for another month and a half.
Okay.
So I was in there for a total of 3 months.
So do you want to talk about, like, when you were in the hospital? What kind of recovery you had to do? Any kind of...
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
While I was in the hospital, really the only thing that I could do was actually watch TV. I couldn't really move my arms. I was almost always fed with a feeding tube. Um,
With corn and potatoes, right?
Eventually, when I came to senses, it was not corn and potatoes. uh, and as far as what else, I had people who came by and came and visited me. Quite a few from different people. People that I thought wouldn't show up actually showed up. Other people I thought would have showed up didn't show up.
And how did that make you feel about the people who didn't show up that you thought would?
I was sitting there thinking, well, plenty of time to actually see him again. Or I didn't make a good enough impression to actually care, so, well. But I was, I got to see a lot of things and hear a lot of things that I didn't think that was possible. Like, for instance, I was not known as the bacterial meningitis case.
What were you known then? You were there for so long. Wouldn't that be what you were known for?
I was actually known being told I do not watch TV. I always left it on the same channel. But what was on all the time and what I was watching, what I became famous for, and what I was watching was the House MD Marathon. All the time. Even the repeat shows and everything. So I became known as the House MD patient.
All right. Have you ever tried going back to the hospital to talk to anyone? You know, sometimes when people are like near death and someone saves them, they go to like talk to the paramedic that saved them from a burning building.
I did on multiple occasions, but I had to go through a extensive process to be able to become independent enough to where I could finally go back to the hospital and wandered through the halls to see if I could run into some of the nurses that I saw or some of the doctors and say thank you. But it wasn't that case, or they moved to a different location, which is more likely due to so many transporting nurses.
Okay.
In all, it took me a year and a half before I finally was able to become independent enough to go back.
Okay. So when they took your legs off, so you survived, did they tell you any expectations regarding your prosthetics you would be getting?
Yeah, they told me I'd have to go through some quite a bit of training. Some of them that would require me to do nothing, others that would require me to do a lot of stuff. One of them is after my legs had been amputated and cut off and the stitches removed, I had to have a leg wraps to shrink my legs to a size that could no longer be get bigger or smaller to be ready for a proper fit for prosthetics.
Okay. So once your legs shrank, did you go into the set of prosthetics you have?
No, I had to be put into practice prosthetics to go through the process of relearning how to walk. And that involved getting a hold of a walker for the elderly, which was not as easy as it seemed, and get a hold of a cane, which at the time I was a big sword collector, so I had a sword cane. So unscrew it, now it came a sword. And then I also had to learn how to walk upstairs, which you would not think would be too hard in comparison, but if you can't move your ankles, it's a lot harder than it might seem.
All right. And how long did you have your practice prosthetics on?
I probably had the practice prosthetics on maybe 5 months.
Is that how long they told you would have them on?
Yeah, that was roughly around how long they told me I would have them on. They said it'd probably be a little longer. The main reason is they could not speed up the size. What they had to do was constantly shrink the size until proper stuff came in. What didn't, though, take as long as they said it would is how fast it would take me to relearn how to walk.
How long did they tell you?
They told me it was going to take me probably about somewhere between 6 and 9 months.
And how long did it take you?
Took me 3.
3?
Took me 3.
Wow, you're a overachiever, aren't you?
I was ready to. I was ready to be back independent, back into my house again, and out and about and moving.
Okay, so. Alright, so how long were you in the hospital from the time your dad carried you to his truck in his arms to the time they said you can leave the hospital and go live at home, or go live outside the hospital?
Total of 3 months.
So you went in May and you were out of the hospital 3 months later?
Yeah, I was out of the hospital. They said I came to a point where that my parents would have to watch over me, but I could be out of the hospital.
So while you're in the hospital, did you get any therapy done?
Yeah, I got some physical therapy. Before I was allowed to have my prosthetics, I had to be in a wheelchair. That was interesting. But I made the most of it, we'll say that much. And also while in there, I had to learn how to use the wheelchair a certain way. I had to become 100% proficient in a wheelchair.
Which included?
It included being able to ollie a wheelchair. It became being able to put the wheelchair backwards on 2 wheels. It became being able to jump curbs. And I had to show I was able to do it at call without mistake. Eventually that became a game. Because I was like, alright, well, cool. It was pretty cool being able to lean back in 2 wheels. Roll it back and forth like this. Oh, cool. It's kind of like a rocking chair. After a while, I got bored, and so I started spinning myself around in just 2 wheels. And then it became, alright, well, I bet you I could do this all the way down the entire hallway of St. Charles. And so my physical therapist saw that at the time. And I was pretty surprised at that.
So let's talk about your physical therapist. Was it a boy or a girl?
I had more than one physical therapist. I had one that was a boy, and then I think 3 that were girls.
Is there a favorite a favorite occupational or physical therapist you had resulting from your ordeal? Is there one that you remember more than others?
There was one I remember more than others, and main reason for that was because the physical therapist was dating my prosthetic doctor. I found out later on that they ended up moving to a different state and got married. But basically whatever happened that she found out that I did in a wheelchair or in prosthetics, my prosthetic doctor found out.
So what are some things that they weren't thrilled to find out that you did in your prosthetics or wheelchair? Any stories to tell about that?
Yeah, I went to a friend's house and had a few drinks, and then I got up one morning and had a physical therapy appointment that time, and so I hopped in my wheelchair and I wheelchaired not just 5 miles to my physical therapist appointment, but over an entire bridge. And my physical therapist saw that and was like, well, I guess we don't have to do arm day now. So it had me do a bunch of other stuff. My physical therapist, my prosthetic doctor saw that and gave me a little lecture about not doing that with prosthetics when I get them.
Now, let's talk about your wheelchair usage. Was there... You told me about an incident earlier today. Do you want to share that with everybody?
So...
Mind you, your family might watch this. Do they know about this?
I don't think so.
They will now.
So there was one instance where I was able to be out of the hospital for a little bit. And it was only allowed for a couple hours. And so I rid to Redmond, and
In the wheelchair?
no, in a vehicle. Pulled out the wheelchair, and I wheelchaired all around, visiting some friends, and running into some other friends along the way, and came across Sam Johnson Park. Now, the side of Sam Johnson Park that we were at has a little downhill slope, about like yay so. Now, I was going down it nice and slow, but I learned the hard way. Allow someone to wheelchair you down that. And here's why. Doesn't matter how slow you think you're going down those hills. When you go down those hills and you hit a rock or a pothole or something, you will fly out of that wheelchair. And I didn't just fly out, but I came all the way out, hit the edges of my stumps that were in the process of being healing, and stood straight up on them because of how I came out.
How'd that feel?
Oh, it was painful. It hurt.
Did you cry?
No, I didn't cry.
Did you curse?
I don't know. I'll have to ask around on that one. But it was definitely interesting. I came back, verified that I didn't cause any damage, and luckily, those things were huge. We're talking like thick padding that they had around my legs.
Mm-hmm.
About yay thick.
Okay.
And it was like hard plastic. So that didn't break, so doctors came to the conclusion I was safe.
Okay, so when you were released from the hospital, they told you that your parents had to watch over you. Did that mean that you were able to go back home and they just checked in on you, made sure you didn't like trip over yourself again?
No, I had to move back in with my parents.
And how old were you when you had to move back in?
I was 23.
How old were you when you moved out?
I was 19.
So you'd only been out... You pick a time where you think you're going to be good, and then there's lawnmowers outside. I think he's passing now. Let's continue back. We'll just ignore it. Okay, so you had to go back to your parents' house?
Yeah, I had to go back to my parents' house.
How did you handle that? How'd that go?
It was definitely rough. But I saw it as probably the best opportunity of me getting back out. Because there was no way I was going to be able to drive myself to appointments. Getting up and down my steps was not going to be a possibility. I couldn't even imagine how to cook in a wheelchair. So if someone out there has perfected it, you got to make a video and show us. Because I'm really curious. I haven't tried it yet.
Okay. So you had a house.
Mm-hmm.
Did you lose the house? Did you have to give it up?
No, my dad took care of it for me. Due to the instance of me puking and vomiting all over the place and
other bodily functions all over the place?
I was going to say alcohol bottles. They kind of took care of it.
So what did he do to the house?
So my dad got a hold of my uncle, my grandparents, and he had a couple other people who came over and helped, and they took care of cleaning it all up so it wasn't completely destroyed, and then had to repaint the walls because of how damaged they were as far as paint wise. I guess apparently I slipped and fell and my hand was just dragging all over the walls at one point in time.
What was on your hand when you're dragging it all over the walls while you were sick?
I don't know, but I assume puke.
Okay. So I remember your grandma or maybe your sister, someone in your family, I've heard this a lot from lots of your family members, One of them told me that they came in and like washed on your walls because they weren't sure like where your bacterial meningitis came from, so they like deep cleaned your whole house. Is that true?
Yes, that is true. That was part of what my dad, grandparents, and my uncle did. I'm grateful for them for it.
Did they do
Feel bad about it, but yeah.
Did they do anything else to prepare your house for you to live in there?
Not that I'm aware of, but I do know that they had to deep shampoo my carpets. They had to wash all my clothes and all of my bedding and everything.
So they did nothing else?
Not that I'm aware of.
What about your wheelchair ramp that is in front of the house that you sold?
So
was that always there?
No, that wasn't always there, and they didn't have anything to do with that. That involved a third-party organization that helps people with disabilities and making it so that their lives are more manageable. That didn't happen until there was talk about me moving back into my place.
How long were you at your parents' house recovering and stuff before there was talk of you moving back?
Probably about 8 months. So it was a good long while.
Oh, 8 months? That's nothing. I mean, you're just living with your parents again. Was it just your parents and you? Was anybody else living at home?
Yeah. Alex was there with me. He was.
Who's Alex?
Alex is the third kid, my brother. So I'm the oldest of 4, and so he'd be the third child.
What about the youngest one?
The youngest one is Maverick.
Was he there?
No, he wasn't there. I don't remember where he was at the time.
Okay. Do you want to talk about how the ordeal affected you mentally? Like, how did you handle it mentally?
I looked at it mostly after I finally figured out that, hey, bowling tournaments were over. As, all right, I got enough time to get back up, get back to bowling, and first things first, I need to learn how to walk and get back to my house.
Okay. And so you mentioned earlier about some friends coming to see you. Did your friends treat you differently? Once you after you got out of the hospital, did they treat you differently?
No, I wouldn't say so. I mean, they came up, they said hi. Some of them got me some books, as more entertainment than TV, which was great because if you knew me, I didn't really have a TV in my house, and if you did see me with the TV in the house, it was it was a box. There's really no way around it. It was a box from 1950s.
Okay. Did you lose any friends?
I don't know about losing friends. I'd probably say more of people I thought were friends that I didn't see show up, or just didn't ask or message me or anything like that. I never saw, so took it as we weren't really friends.
So for your friends that did come to see you, let's say they came to see you in the hospital or when you were still in the wheelchair, did you feel like they were maybe uncomfortable around you at first? Did they word vomit at you? Like some people tend to do when they're talking to people in wheelchairs.
No, they didn't word vomit at me. But some of them, I'd probably say they mostly could tell that it was really hard for me to find words in the beginning. I was always known as the quiet one, but this was definitely much more so.
Okay. So, once you were able to move out of your parents' house again, into your house again,
Mm-hmm.
how was it being back home again?
It was definitely pleasing, but I learned some things.
And what did you learn? Do we want to know what you learned?
One was that disability doesn't really hand out much. I was struggling just by disability alone. I could sit at home, watch TV, and read books from the library. That was about it. If I did anything more than that, I was at risk of not being able to pay my mortgage.
Because?
Because it was just so little, and my mortgage was really not unreasonable, but they don't really hand out much as far as disability goes.
All right, so we're going to talk a little bit about that. So let's backtrack. What was your job before the meningitis?
I was a unemployed fire sprinkler installer and certified backflow tester.
So how did you get unemployed? Did they fire you?
No, if you remember the big market crash of 2009, it really took out a lot of people in the construction industry. And when I was asked if there was any volunteers that would be willing to take a layoff, I volunteered because I found out that at the time that I had saved up enough money to be able to just sit back, let them know, hey, just call me when it gets better, or if you have a job that you really needs me to do, and I'll just be sitting back, drinking, and continue being a beta tester, which I was a beta tester for video games.
How old were you?
I was 22 at the time.
All right, so not a bad gig for a 22-year-old guy. All right, so then how long after you got your legs to go bye-bye did you decide to try to find work other than collecting disability payment?
It was almost instantly after moving into the house and finding out I was barely getting by with bills. At the time, my parents were already helping me as far as getting back into the workforce, seeing what was available, what could do. The hardest part about the whole thing was the rules and limitations of disability. There's quite a bit. Basically, they refer to it as substantial gainful activity. Very vague response, very vague answer. It took a lot of digging to find out what that actually meant. Basically, it says if you make more money than a certain amount, you're considered not disabled. Doesn't matter if you have a reason to be disabled, or if you end up destroying yourself in the process. The other one is they can at any time determine that you are no longer disabled, which I thought was weird because I don't understand how my legs are going to grow back. Maybe if I ate a worm or a chameleon, maybe my legs will grow back, but I don't know.
So what was your job that you decided to go with after you decided that you needed more money?
Well, I thought about it, and being as how my entire job was physical, it required me to lift pipes that were weighing more than me. I thought about it, and then I was like, well, I always wanted to go into computers. Might as well make him force me to do it. So I went into computers because it was already something I was pretty knowledgeable in anyways.
And where was your first job computer related?
Well, I had to be evaluated first to make sure that I actually knew some things about computers. So they had me talk to someone who actually had worked in computers previously.
Mm-hmm.
And after talking to me, he's like, yeah, this guy knows what he knows. He's actually really saying what it is. And they eventually got me a job working at Best Buy.
Which location? Do you want to share which location?
I was at the Bend location, which was probably the most amazing location I could have actually signed up to. They cover basically everything within 100 miles radius. The nearest place would be Portland, and if you pull up a map, you'll see that that is no small distance.
Were they aware of your disability when they hired you?
Some were aware, because it was required that you wear pants and you wear a polo shirt that was blue. Some people did not realize that I was in prosthetics. And in fact, I got a lot of apologies when they asked me to do something and I went and did it, and they found out that
Can we do our last one?
I was disabled. So, one example was one of my colleagues came up to me and asked me to go up the stair ladder, and it was just nice and easy to climb up and go and grab a top shelf item, which was the iMac Air desktop.
Do you want to out anybody in the store? Or you're gonna keep it down low.
I'm gonna keep it down low. I'm trying to leave as many names out as possible without first getting permission.
Good job.
So I was like, all right, well, whatever. So I went up to go get the iMac, and then I started coming down, only to find out another colleague of mine was ripping him out a new one and saying, "Dude, you're such a dick. You're gonna make the guy with no legs go up there and grab the iMac?" And he was like, "Oh my gosh, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. I don't mean to. I won't ask you to do that again, I promise." It was probably the most hilarious thing I had seen when I was there. After that, it became more of a up to my discretion on which items I would grab.
Okay. And are you still at Best Buy?
No, I eventually left Best Buy. I decided I was going to try and get off disability. Felt like that I might be in a position to where I could try and be fully independent again. And so I went and got a full-time job. And as a way of being thankful for saving me and returning the favor, I tried to go and be the IT guy for St. Charles. It backfired. I ended up tearing holes in the bottom of my legs in the process.
Did you crack it on the side too? One of them?
I actually broke my prosthetics. It became to a point that I was being too physical. I was walking roughly about 18,000 steps a day, which is way over than what I should have been.
So, what prompted you to finally say, "I'm done"?
Eventually, it came down to when me pulling my prosthetics off and pulling off the sleeves and pulling it off, only to find out that there was blood all over inside my prosthetic.
Weren't you worried about how you're going to support yourself if you weren't working anymore?
I talked to my wife about that. I asked her how she felt about it. She was awesome. She's like, "Do it. Quit. I will work 3 jobs if I have to. Just quit." And so, yeah, I was like, all right, well, if you really mean it, I will. So I put in my notice. Eventually, went into the process of training someone to take over the position for me. Super nice guy. He's awesome. And on my last day, I said goodbye, gave him my phone number, said, "Let me know if you have any questions. I will do my best to answer them to you through text message."
And did he ever ask you anything?
Yeah, he asked me a few things. Wasn't most of them weren't too complicated. He just wanted to know how I fixed them in the past, so he wasn't spending forever fixing them.
Okay, and now what are you doing?
As of now, I work at a church, and I take care of the technology there. And then I also work for another IT company where we handle various businesses. And
Go ahead.
And both those jobs, I work part time. Even combined, they still don't even total up to a real part time job.
Okay, so for those of us that are watching this video on this channel, they can see that the other videos have to do with traveling in an RV. Okay? So do you want to talk about what prompted you to sell your house? What happened in your life to say, I want to sell my house, travel in an RV, and see the country? What happened?
A lot of things happened at the time.
Okay.
And I remember as a kid about how often my dad and my mom had always talked about moving into an RV and just seeing the world. They never got around to doing it, and
Do you want to...
and I always felt like that I should be one of those people who just took a shot at it, took a chance.
What happened? How come your parents never did that with you guys?
A lot of things happened. One is my mom at a very early age, before I was, I don't remember if it was after I was born or before I was born, got diagnosed with MS. Doctor, tell me if I'm saying the name wrong, but I believe it's multiple sclerosis. Okay. So there was that, and so I'd thought about, well, what if I just did that, just enjoyed disability and toured the world and just enjoyed. So at the time I thought about it. It was all in hindsight, just an idea, not really fully set on doing it. And I was reading a couple books at the time. One of the ones that mostly stood out was the 4-Hour Work Week, because I was really annoyed that I had to quit my full-time job. I was going to try to find a way of getting off disability again and try and go that route. And I figured if I was on my feet less, that would be a good option. But in the book, it talked about how reducing bills and being at different places in the world can be a huge effect on you, especially if you have steady income. And then there was the Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, who pointed out that, yeah, you can have this big, huge, nice apartment loft, or you could be living in this trailer. One will cost you $1,800 a month. The other one will cost you $500 a month. Question is, do you really want to live someplace expensive that you enjoy, or do you want to have someplace and then be elsewhere and enjoy? And so that's really got me to thinking, all right, well, that's a big gap. I mean, if I was spending less than an apartment loft, I should have some options. So then I started running some numbers. I have a habit of crunching numbers and doing evaluations, and so I did a futuristic trend by following the trends of taxes and our current bills and our current eating habits and how it was increasing over the years. And after doing an evaluation, I came to the conclusion we had about 5 more years left till I would struggle to support it.
So, once you thought about that, who did you discuss your brilliant idea with first? And what was that person's response to you? Please share that with everyone.
So, being sad that my mother had died, and I had always heard that you should never do anything drastic after a major event. I felt it would be a wise idea to ask my wife what her opinions are on the idea and how she thought about it.
So, you have a spaceship.
Yeah, I have a spaceship. It's actually a vehicle with hand controls, but yeah, it's everyone I know seems to like to call it the spaceship because it's out of this world.
Okay. Do you feel like your disability affects your living in an RV? Was there anything you looked for in particular because of your disability?
I was looking for a few possibilities in the beginning, but none that were actually of it really any really concern. Most of them we came to conclusion when we tried to upgrade our RV. We found some issues of things that I couldn't do. Mainly because of after trial and error from the first one. Some of the things that we noticed that I couldn't do is quite often I will be using my knees to walk around the house, and climbing up on the bed tends to be quite problematic. Not that I'm weak in the upper arms, because, well, I've rebuilt that up quite well before she met me. Other things involved...
Wait, that's because you had like a workbench in your bedroom that you would do like in between you eating and going to the bathroom and stuff. Oh, I'm just going to pump out like 50 sets here and there because that's what you did to entertain yourself and eat beans and rice. So, of course, you had some muscular going on. Not so much anymore. You got some flab.
Yeah, you should have seen me in the hospital on how that worked out.
Okay, so what are some things that... So right now we're in a 32-foot travel trailer. Mm-hmm. When we're down to one or two less kids, what are some things you would like to look for in a fifth wheel or RV in the future?
Definitely a smaller length. We we found out how difficult it can be in some areas of the United States to drive around in an RV. Even if my wife does think that I should be on the test trial of Driver or Need for Speed.
Oh, come on! Okay, so... He said, when we were in Las Vegas, he goes, I don't feel like driving on the big, like, 6-lane Las Vegas highway. I'm like, alright, well, let's follow the map and use this other one. This other road, which wasn't a highway or freeway, but they were doing road construction, and it had, like, traffic safety cones on both sides. He was able to pull his truck and his 37-foot RV and not run over any cones. So I don't know what he's complaining about.
Complaining about is the fact that my wife figured I could do Tokyo Drift in this thing. Down through and make sure to not hit any of those cones. I was paranoid. Trust me, you should have seen the grips that were on the wheel after I got done.
Okay, so you want a shorter RV next time.
Shorter RV.
And do you want a travel trailer or a fifth wheel?
Fifth wheel. That way I can get my motorcycle.
Oh,
It's a joke. Don't worry about it.
Okay. How about the layout? Is there anything that you'd want in particular in the layout?
Yeah, I'd like an actual real full-length tub. I don't know whose idea this was to think, oh, a partial half tub is great. Well, when you put someone like my wife in that thing, yeah, you got like her feet clear up into the air touching the ceiling. And you got someone like me who still, even with his legs cut off, can barely fit in the damn thing. So whoever's idea that was just did not think that through at all. The other thing that I would really like is I'd probably like a real fridge.
What do you mean by a real fridge?
Well, we got a RV fridge right now. It is basically the size of half of your normal standard fridge. Does not do anything fancy, such as being able to go up and woohoo, I got ice, or shoot out filtered water. What it does do is it keeps stuff cold, and it is designed this way to where that if for some reason you are not hardwired in, it'll actually still keep it cold through the use of batteries or propane. Which is a nice feature, by the way. It just, you miss your old fridge. You miss having a real fridge.
Let's talk about some features in RVs that you don't like.
Yeah, I don't understand why I would need a fireplace outside. I mean, yeah, I understand, if you grab a bunch of wood, you cook one up, and you light a fireplace, but having a little heater fireplace that's LED oriented outside just doesn't make any sense to me. Why?
Right, what about any other things?
I thought I would use the outdoor stove a lot more. Turns out that wasn't really the case. We were actually thinking that, when it gets hotter outside, to use the outdoor one. With the use of propane, we came to the conclusion that, yeah, while it's there, we're just better off getting a small little camp stove.
So in our other RV that we did our inaugural travel around the Southwest in the summertime, we did use the outdoor stove, two top burner thing a lot, but it was mainly like we were in rest areas or other things. I would cook food outside and then bring it in. But where we're at now, it's a little windy to be using that during the summertime. How about any other features of the RV that you don't care for?
As far as other features that I don't care for, the gas stove. It's a pain in the butt to light.
No, it's a pain in the ass to light. It doesn't heat evenly, and it's stupid.
Well, you forgot the fact that it takes over a half hour just to heat it up to the right preheat temperature. That's a lot of propane to go for before you actually put something in the stove. And if you're like me, who likes homemade enchiladas, or someone who wants to make quiche or shepherd's pie, you're going to have that thing on for easily over 2 hours. And this thing's like a tank. It's going to get hot in here fast. And not only that, that's a lot of propane to go through again. We just don't use it.
Do you feel your handicap prevents you doing anything regarding to living in an RV full time or camping?
Yeah, it does. I thought about, keeping my wheelchair and, probably doing some sports in a wheelchair. Not like Olympic style or anything, but I did consider some ideas. And I came to the conclusion there's really nowhere to put a wheelchair. There is really nowhere to actually ride this wheelchair around. It is small. You're basically in a tiny house.
So how do you manage, like, towing the thing, hooking it up, doing the stabilizers, finding places to camp that are wheelchair friendly or like handicap friendly? Are there things in RV parks that you look for as a person with handicap?
Well, let's see. As far as things about hauling to the trailer, we looked at having a automatic jack raiser for lifting up off of the truck and dropping it down onto the hitch, and then vice versa. Awesome guy. If you ever meet him, go check out Super Dave. His page is awesome. He showed us that actually there is some benefits to not having an automatic one like that. In fact, he showed us that you can very easily raise and lower, both with and without an automatic jack raiser. And by doing so, it's able to easily get up and down. The jack is very high supportive. As far as parks, there is some things that I actually do look for in a park, and part of it is for my wife. My wife looks for an actual bathroom because that tub is small. The park is not required to have a tub. Just have a shower on site. When it comes to something like that, I look for a handicap organized shower stall. Usually they will have a bench that goes down into the shower, but what they fail to realize is for someone like me who has to take off his legs, hop into the shower, hop onto that thing, and then shower down onto it, the idea of getting back onto his prosthetics is near impossible unless he plans on getting his prosthetics and clothes soaked.
We have not been able to come across an RV park that has that feature. I mean, there's bathrooms with benches, but not one with a bench outside of the shower.
There's been a couple. There was one in over by the beach in Tillamook.
Oh yeah, Neatart's
Neatart's
RV Resort.
Yeah, Neatart's RV Resort had a bench outside of it. Ben's Sisters Gardens RV. They had a chair and table sitting out there for people to get in and out of the bathrooms, or if some parents waiting for their kid to shower, they have a place to just sit and relax, which I thought was super cool. So after going to those two places, I thought it was actually very common for others. I got proved wrong really quickly. In fact, I also found out that some parks don't even have a handicap section. They just flat out ignore it, or some of them will have a handicap section and the actual bench will be broken. I thought there was one of them that I found out that looked like it worked fine. I put it on. I hopped on top. I'm not heavy, mind you, but the damn bench fell over and I slid right off. See, at the time I was weighing at 178, which is not that heavy at all. So without prosthetics, that comes out to 168.
All right, so we're going to probably wrap this up. So do you have any advice for other people out there that have similar handicaps to you that want to travel and see things? Is it possible? Is there things you want to look out for? What do you have to say to them?
So it is possible. There are things to look out for. The first thing I to identify is you got to know your limit on how far you can walk. There is really no exact answer to that, as it'll be judged day by day. I found out that by monitoring with most of your phones, if it's a smartphone, it will actually monitor how many steps you take per day. If you were to average that out, you can actually get a really good idea where you should be at. Certain places, like for instance the Grand Canyon, gorgeous place, not walking friendly or disabled friendly.
Do you want to tell them what happened?
I basically died trying to walk that, and I was hurting, and I brought extra pads or socks or whatever it is that you want to call them, and I about every 20 minutes I had to add another in both legs, and by the time that I was done, I had run out and I had bottomed out.
And I just want to add right here that he was not the only one that died walking up this path. We took the shuttle to a certain area, and then we decided we were going to walk to the next viewing point, not knowing it was like, I don't know the degree incline, but it was a pretty steep incline. We all suffered, didn't we?
Oh yeah, we did. But yeah, you'll either have to figure out how many steps you can walk, or you will be looking for places that don't have inclines. Inclines are not your friend. I will literally take the long route and walk an extra mile out of my way to avoid an incline.
Anything else you want to add?
We'll have more soon in the next video.
Alright, so wrapping this up, this is a really long video. Not sure how long it's going to be. I've had to stop and pause it as kids come in. Lawnmowers happen in the background. If you have any questions or comments, put them down below. And if there's enough interest, we'll do another video regarding RV travel with disability. But another video we're going to work on compiling is how we met on a blind date and how it almost didn't happen. Alright, that's it.